It is good to see everyone here, and it's good to be with all those who want to worship God on the first day of the week. We want to welcome all of our guests and invite you to be with us whenever you can be with us. This morning we're going to be looking here in Ephesians chapter 6. And in Ephesians chapter 6 there is the whole armor of God, and it's all being described to us. And first off, we're going to make mention that what is described here. Well, let's just begin in verse 10. So Ephesians chapter 6 and verse 10. Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of His might. Put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. Well, what are wiles? Wiles are schemes, evil plans, conspiracies, traps, or plans of a strategy to try to trip you up. Evil things that are there against you and against me and against all of us. But understand, we control ourselves. We're responsible for ourselves, and we need to be concerned about anything that Satan would have for us. And his weaponry is effective. If it wasn't effective, there wouldn't be sin in the world. But it's effective. And there is sin that is common to us all. And it's common because it's effective. Therefore, we need the strength that God gives us. We need what He provides because we are helpless against it. So then he says, well, let's just read verse 11 again. Put on the whole armor. We need to notice that. Put on the whole armor. Partial armor is no good. Going into battle, missing something in armor that means you've got a weak point. A weak point. Well, your enemy isn't going to be gracious and only go after your strongest points. Your enemy's not going to waste his time doing that. And when it comes to Satan, Satan's not going to waste his time going against your strongest points. He's going after your weakest points. And he knows what those points are. If he doesn't, he's going to figure it out. Now it would be, let's just put this into the same time period and the same analogy that Paul is writing this. This is in the Roman world. And the armor that he's speaking of, this is armor that one would have seen among troops. But it would be preposterous. It would be a very bad idea for one to go into battle. You've got the sword, you've got the helmet, you've got the breastplate, you have all these things, but you forgot your shoes. Okay, you forgot your shoes. You're going to be barefoot on the battlefield. Okay, you think your enemy isn't going to take advantage of that? And we're talking Satan, by the way. We're talking about Satan. Satan is not going to notice, he seems to be completely armed and never going to figure out you don't have shoes on, that somehow you have bare feet. Of course he will. We have to have the whole armor of God. And without the whole armor of God, we are helpless. Helpless. Do not think that somehow you can have someone who's denying God and someone out here who happens, let's just make this person an atheist, that somehow this atheist is going to be like this, sure, doesn't believe in God, but is really a nice person. And beyond that, the best person we've ever seen, and somehow is like the most gracious, the most good, the most righteous. If ever there was going to be righteousness, this person is it. That is wrong. That person has made themselves helpless to Satan, and there are all sorts of things you don't know about that person. All sorts of things. Without the whole armor of God, you can do nothing against Satan. Now notice what he says in verse 12, because this tells us more about our enemy. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood. We're going to take that just for a second. We don't wrestle against flesh and blood. This isn't a material sort of battle. This is spiritual. If this were a matter of matter, if this were material, some material battle truly of flesh and blood, then our weaponry would be quite different. We wouldn't need the whole armor of God. We would need a different set of armor altogether. And we could defeat our enemy by way of numbers and by way of superior physical, whether it's battleships or tanks or helicopters or jets or missiles, whatever it is, we could use that. But these are powers beyond our sight. And never underestimate those powers. These are powers that we cannot see. And you're helpless against them without Christ. We all are. There's nothing peculiar about you. We all are helpless. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this age, against spiritual hosts of wickedness in heavenly places. Spiritual hosts of wickedness, that's showing that there's more out there than just one individual named Satan. There's more than that. Of course, if you know your New Testament, you'll know that to be the case. Matter of fact, you can know that to be the case from the Old Testament. You can know that there is more out there that is your enemy than just Satan. Because what is hell made for? God created hell for someone, actually it's a group in particular. The devil, or Satan, and his angels. How wicked must you be if God created hell just for you? How wicked must you be? How wicked must Satan be and his angels that God created hell just for them? And hell has been created for a while, by the way. It is long before we were even born. So it's not created for us. It's not created for mankind, but we can throw ourselves into it. We can do it by disobedience to God, by ignoring or suppressing the truth. We can do those things. But we can enjoy Satan and his angels right in there for eternity. And they're not going to be having fun. They're going to be tormented like everybody else in hell. And never think that somehow Satan is in hell at the moment. He is not, or that hell happens to be where his throne is. It is not. Satan is here, roaming on the earth precisely as Peter says he was. Peter says he was then the first century. And exactly as Satan said he was in the book of Job. He's roaming the earth. Peter says, like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. He's not, nor think that somehow Satan is going to be ruler in hell. He's not going to be ruler. He's going to be a prisoner like everybody else. There is no ruler there. It's a prison. And it's a horrifying place. Now, here, talking about the wickedness or the spiritual hosts of wickedness in heavenly places, if we could see it, which we can't, if we could see it, we would realize this testing ground is a dangerous place and a serious place, and we need God because He is our only help. You can't go to some self-help magazine or book or someone doing self-help things on YouTube. That's not going to be of any worth, any value whatsoever. And Christ is the only one who can do this. Christ is the only one who can help us. Just as an aside, there is a tradition that has been going on for a long time, and it's part of the Hajj. It's part of the Muslim pilgrimage to Mecca. And that there is a rock that represents Satan. And for centuries, this has been done of where you go and you visit that rock and you throw stones at the rock, as though that does anything to Satan. You're angry at Satan, therefore Satan is embodied in that rock. I don't know if it's literal or figurative, but we at least have this effigy, at least we have this thing we're calling Satan, and we're throwing rocks at Satan, therefore we hate you, Satan. Is that of any use against Satan? No, not in the least. And I do believe Satan laughs. And I think he laughs at things like that because it's pointless. You're no more defending yourself against Satan than if you just make eating cotton candy. It would be of no greater value than just lounging around for the day and saying, I'm defeating Satan by lounging around for the day. Nothing can defeat him except Christ, and nothing can help you except Christ. He is it, and you have to have that armor. We must have it, because there are powers and these forces beyond our sight, and I'm not the one saying it. The Holy Spirit is saying it through the book of the Ephesians. He's telling us it's there and warning us, because this is what every generation, every person is going to be facing in their life. Therefore, verse 13, therefore, because of all this, take up the whole armor of God, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, to stand. Now we come to this first part in verse 14, because this is the first of the armor. Stand therefore, having girded your waist with truth. This is the belt of truth. And we start there, because truth it's important. Okay? Truth is important. Truth is reality. Lies do not describe reality. Truth is reality. And we happen to be living in this existence, and it's an existence. We exist because God created us. We're here in this material realm because God created this material realm. He has created every physical property. He has created every law of physics governing all of the universe. He has done all these things, and there's not a single thing you can do to escape your existence, to change your existence, to change reality. You can't do it. Nor can you change the truth. Something that is true, yeah, you can do so. Okay, let me just give you an example. And I usually use my tie. Okay, it is true that I'm wearing this tie this particular time on this particular day. All right, can I change my tie today? Yeah, I can change my tie. Or you changed the truth. No, I didn't. The truth still stands. This time, this day, I was wearing this tie. I can't change that truth, actually. I can't change that truth. But there are greater truths in my tie. There are greater ones. And the greatest truth of all is one that absolutely matters. And we see, it's Jesus. It's the Christ. Let's go to Matthew chapter 7. We start there. And here, he speaks of truth and the fact that he's giving truth. Or I think we mentioned this last week, but in this small parable that Jesus gives at the end of the Sermon on the Mount. So, Matthew chapter 7, beginning in verse 24. But through the Sermon on the Mount, he's presenting truths, different facts. You have heard it said this, but I say that. That this has been said, or this has been written, and this is what I have to say about that. And just numerous things. Matter of fact, the Sermon on the Mount is extraordinarily, it's brief. It's brief. It's only chapters 5 to 7. Chapters 5 to 7. It's only those 3 chapters. That's it. But it has so much in it. But he says this, therefore, whoever hears these sayings of mine and does them, I will liken him to a wise man who built his house on the rock. Why? Because it's built on the truth of Christ. Christ is giving you truth. If he presents to you what is righteousness, I have no leverage or privilege or right to make my own version of it. None at all. He defines it. And it's always, he's got the authority to do it. And he's always the one that has the authority to do it. Never me, never any papacy, never anybody else. He is the one that has the authority to do it. Whoever hears these sayings of mine and does them. You hear them, you do them. What shall you be compared to? A wise man built his house on a rock. And this would be a rock that is massive. It can't be moved. We have in our area Stone Mountain. Stone Mountain's a big piece of stone. All right? If you were to build your house on Stone Mountain, Stone Mountain's not moving. It's not moving. But here's the thing about truths and physical mountains. Here's the thing about it. A truth, you can't destroy a truth. A truth always is. A truth always is. You cannot destroy. The fact that the truth that Jesus is the Christ, Son of the living God, and we'll get to that in just a second, that truth, you can deny that truth. You can ignore that truth. You can suppress that truth, but you can't destroy it. You can't destroy a truth. You cannot do it. And the enemies of Christ have been trying to do that from the point at which He was here on this earth, going all the way to today, trying to destroy that truth. But you can't do it. Now with something like Stone Mountain or any mountain, actually with enough explosives and equipment, you can destroy in time any mountain on this earth. If you want to do it, if you want the time to do it, if you can do it. Even if it's Everest, given enough time and enough expense and all of that, you could make Everest into gravel, if that's what you wanted to do. But you can't touch the truth that Jesus is the Christ. You can't touch that. Now that brings us to, let's just go to Matthew chapter 16. Because Jesus begins this section in verse 13. He says, "Who do men say that I, the Son of Man, am?" Okay? He's in the region of Caesarea Philippi. He asks his disciples this question, "Who do men say that I, the Son of Man, am?" Surely they've got an opinion by now. Surely they've come to some kind of decision on this, some conclusion. Verse 14, "So they said, some say John the Baptist, some Elijah, and others Jeremiah or one of the prophets." Okay, so there's kind of confusion in this. There's confusion. So one would have to ask the question, well, does that mean he is John the Baptist? Because some believe it? No. Does that mean that he is Elijah? Because some believe it? No. Or that he's Jeremiah or one of the prophets? Well, he is a prophet, but greater than any prophet, because what Peter is going to state shows who he is. Now, saying that he's a prophet is getting close, but you're not there yet. Because Jonah was a prophet, and Jesus says a greater than Jonah is here. He's far greater than Jonah. He's far greater than any other prophet. While, yes, he can prophesy and does, he's far greater than that. In verse 15, "And he said to them, but who do you say that I am?" What is your conviction? What do you believe? What's your conclusion? Simon Peter answered and said, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." All right, that's Peter's conviction. And Christ says, "Blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father who's in heaven." That's how you came to this conclusion. You came to this conclusion not because flesh and blood revealed it, but that the Father revealed it. Revealed it how? Through prophecies of the past, through fulfillment of those prophecies, through wonders and signs that were occurring. All these things happening surrounding Jesus of Nazareth, that one could easily come to the conclusion, because God makes it easily come to the conclusion that this must be the Christ. As some of the people in that day said, when the Son of David comes, is he going to do more than this? If this is not the Son of David, if this is not the Christ, you mean the Christ is going to do more than this man has done? Because he's doing a lot. He's doing a lot. And the prophets have spoken of him, and they're being fulfilled right there in front of their eyes. These things are being fulfilled. Now, he says, Jesus then says in verse 18, "And I say to you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades shall not prevail against it." So he's going to build his church on a rock. What rock is that? Because the rock in the Koine Greek, this rock that he's talking about, is a massive rock. He's going to build his church. What's that rock? That rock is on the truth that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of the living God. It's on that truth. Everything rises or falls on that. If he is the Son, if he is the Christ, Son of the living God, it means one thing, that we must be obedient to him, and everything that he said is true. Everything he said is correct. He is the Christ. He came and died for mankind. He established the church. He died for the church. He is its chief cornerstone. He is the one spoken of from the beginning and will return in the end to bring everyone into judgment. That's a lot and more, and that means we must be obedient to him. If that is the truth, that is the meaning of it for us, and that it applies to us. But if it's false, if Jesus is not the Christ, he's not the Son of the living God, if all this is false, then everything falls. You can't say that Jesus of Nazareth is so much as a good man. You can't believe anything that he said or anything that is said about him except what's coming from his critics. That he's a blasphemer, that he is a madman, that he is something other than this. So it rises or falls with this. So you make the choice. Do you believe that he is the Christ, or do you believe that he's not the Christ? Because it's that extreme, exactly as Christ described it. Either you're gathering with me or you're scattering abroad. It's one or the other. It's either all or nothing. Because this truth doesn't have gradients to it. It's either full or it's empty. It's either the truth or it's a lie. And I will tell you from here, if it's a lie, toss this away and find some other path. Find something else. And I have no idea what that would be. Wouldn't even know what that would be if this is a lie. But this is the truth. This is the truth. And as the truth, it has a meaning, and it has also a determination as to where we go into eternity. Everything is balanced on this truth. Everything. Now, let's go to, just skip over to Matthew 14. Matthew 14 in verse 33. And we see individuals who they're saying precisely what Peter said, and they're actually saying it before Jesus says, "But who do you say that I am?" Verse 33. Then those who were in the boat came and worshipped him, saying, "Truly, you are the Son of God." They come to that conclusion. And they use the word truly because they see he is the Son of God. And that makes the difference in everything. I'll just relate this personal story. I have believed the Bible, I guess, all my life. Of course, like anybody else, I have my ups and my downs. Like anybody else, I have my failings and returns, like anybody else. But I remember studying Daniel, the book of Daniel, which we are studying the life and times of Daniel on Wednesday night, but it's for the children's class. Studying the book of Daniel earnestly for the first time with a teacher. And I did know world history. I did know that. Don't claim to be an expert at it. But I did know world history and the general flow of things of world history. And in reading and studying and being taught the book of Daniel, I already knew that the Bible was from God. But I didn't realize until that point that there was so much evidence, and it's huge evidence, that the Bible must be from God. Because what Daniel points out are not minor little things. These are enormous events in world history that if you were to just pick up a world history book, they would include these things. But he's speaking of them before they even occur. Now, that's why the skeptics hate the book of Daniel. They hate the book of Daniel, and they have to make the book of Daniel written centuries after it was. They have to make it written centuries after those things occurred. But that's a very impossible task to do. I'm going to tell you why. Because there are proofs there that you have the entire book of Daniel by 250 BC. And these events had not played out by that time. There were still more things to come by 250 BC. Now Daniel writes considerably earlier. He's going to be writing sometime in the 500s is where he's going to be writing. But we know that we have a full, complete book of Daniel because it's in the Septuagint. The Septuagint is a Greek translation translated in Alexandria, Egypt, in 250 BC. If they're translating the book into Greek, then they got the whole book. But we also have the Dead Sea Scrolls that are in the original Hebrew. And that goes back just as equally, it's as an equal of a problem because that goes back also before these things transpired. Now, what these men have come to understand is we know truly you are the Son of God. They can't come to another conclusion. They cannot do it because the truth has shown it to them. They see what the truth is, and once again, it's the Father revealing these things through His Son. His Son is able to calm storms. His Son is able to walk across water. His Son is able to raise the dead. His Son is able to cure diseases, to heal the lame. The blind now see, the deaf now hear. Those that have been possessed by demons, demons speak their little speech, saying, "We know who you are. Have you come to torment us before the time? We know you're the Christ. We know you're the one from God." They know who He is, and He casts them out. They're seeing these things. And here, they recognize the truth. Let's go to Matthew chapter 27. Matthew 27 and verse 54. Here we have Jesus on the cross. And there's a centurion there. What is a centurion? A centurion is a Roman officer. He's in the Roman army. He's a Roman officer. He comes from presumably a pagan background. I don't know his particulars, but I think we could assume that his background. He is not like those who plotted the death of Christ. He's there, as is his duty to be there. Okay? So, verse 54, Matthew 27:54. So when the centurion and those with him who were guarding Jesus saw the earthquake and the things that had happened, they feared greatly, saying, truly, this was the Son of God. They're saying the same thing that those men said on the boat in chapter 14. They're saying the same thing that Peter said in chapter 16. This is the Son of God. They're recognizing the truth. They're seeing the truth. Now, the problem with truths is there is no problem about them unless you make it a problem. All right? The gospel is the good news that troubles the world. All right, it does. But it's good news. How could this trouble you? Because it's good news. Well, it's from God. Don't want God. Don't want to be under Him. Don't want to be subject to any authority by God. Don't want to be under any law by God. I want to behave myself however I want to do it. I have that freedom. Actually, you don't have that freedom. You have the ability, but you don't have that freedom. You have that ability, and there's a big difference between the two. But here is this truth that it's not a problem when you recognize the truth and you put yourself in line with the truth. But it's a problem if you deny the truth and live as though it's not the truth at all. Case in point, just in a little analogy. When I was a kid, we weren't too far away from railroad tracks. When I was a kid, I enjoyed walking the railroad tracks. Now, when a train was coming, we could hear it coming. We would get off the tracks, obviously. We had that much sense. I might not have had much more sense, but I had that kind of sense. But you understood the truth of a train. Now, one could align themselves with the truth of the train and be spared what the train would have done. You get off the tracks and you're safe from the train. Not going to happen. Hopefully that it doesn't derail, but you're off the tracks. If you think it's going to derail, well, you get a little bit further away. But you watch it go by. Now, someone who's going to just sit on the tracks and say there is no such thing as a train, well, you're going to find the truth of the train coming up. You're going to find that truth, and it's not going to be a happy union. It's not going to be good. You can deny the train all you want. You can deny why there are tracks all you want. But that doesn't mean trains don't exist. You can deny God and His Christ all you want. You can deny the gospel and the plan of salvation all you want, but that doesn't mean they don't exist. They still do. And the day of judgment will come just as inevitably as a train on that track. It will come, the day of judgment will come as inevitably and show everyone the truth they already knew. We can see in places like Romans chapter 1. Well, we'll get to that in just a little bit. But in Romans chapter 1, you have an entire people, the Gentile people, entire people, that it's the history of the Gentile world and why the Roman world and the Gentile world was the way it was in the first century. And it goes back many years before that, and the suppression of truth. What truth was that? The biggest truth of them all, and that truth is God is. You deny the biggest truth of them all, and you think that isn't going to affect you? It will. It will. Because you're throwing away anything you might have had from the armor of God. You've thrown it away. And the first one is that belt, or that girdle, if you will, or gird yourself up with the truth, because that's precisely what we are called to do. Take up that whole armor, having girded your waist with truth. That belt must be there. And it starts there. And most definitely, no one will be obedient to God and Christ if they do not recognize the truth and desire it. If they are suppressing the truth, if they hate the truth, there's no way they're going to be obedient to the truth at all. Let's go to 2 Timothy. 2 Timothy chapter 3. And 2 Timothy chapter 3 speaks of false teachers being lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, unloving, unforgiving, slanderers, without self-control, brutal, despisers of good, traitors, headstrong, haughty, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having a form of godliness, but denying its power, and from such people turn away. Now we come to verse 6. For of this sort are those who creep into households and make captives of gullible women, loaded down with sins, led away by various lusts, always learning and never able to come to the knowledge of the truth. Why? One, who's teaching them? First off, is these false teachers. These false teachers that are traitors, headstrong, haughty, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having a form of godliness but not denying its power. That's who's teaching them. But here we have always learning and never able to come to the knowledge of the truth. Verse 8. Now as Jannes and Jambres resisted Moses, so do these also resist the truth. They're resisting, they resist the truth. The truth has been given to us in print. And through the providence of God, it's come down even to our own language, translated exactly to us. And even with the providence of God, you can get this how many ways? How many ways can you get this? You can get this instantaneously if you wanted to. On a tablet, on a phone. You can get this easily from a bookstore, online. You can get this without even paying for it by going to different websites. It is there, and you can have the truth. Because by the providence of God, the Bible has not been stamped out. It has not been burned out. It has not been defeated. It continues on because in it we find our salvation. In it we find the whole armor of God. And God still has a love for us. He did not send His Son to die on the cross so that His gospel would only go so far in the world, geographically, or only so far in time and can't get beyond a certain barrier in some century, and then anyone born after that century would have no access to it. He's not going to do that. It's too important. And He has love, and He has power, and He continues that on to where we have access to the truth today. We have access to that truth. Now, let's talk about those who did not want the truth. We start with Saul. That would be King Saul, first king of Israel. In 1 Samuel chapter 27, he wants to talk to Samuel. There's a problem in that. Samuel's dead. That's sort of difficult to do. But Saul decides he's going to try his hand at using a medium, or we might say a witch. Going to try to get her to bring up the spirit of Samuel so that he can talk to Samuel. Which, we're going to say, that medium or that witch had no power to do such a thing. None at all. And of course that is against the law of Moses, and it's against the law of Christ. It's hooey is what it is. And it is something that is of no benefit to anyone. Nevertheless, in this instance, God is the one that brings Samuel to talk to Saul. And Samuel says some things that Saul would have already known. And he's telling, basically, what Samuel is saying is, you didn't listen to me when I was alive. Why are you going to listen to me now? You've already been given this information. Why do you want it now? Because you already know it. Anything that Samuel may have to say to him, he's already said to him. It's already been given to him. And Saul does precisely what Saul has been doing. He didn't like it when it was in chapter 13 of 1 Samuel. He didn't like it when it was chapter 15 of 1 Samuel. He didn't like it at all. Now we come to chapter 27, and Samuel is being brought up from the dead. He's saying the same thing. So now you're going to like it? He didn't. He didn't. And Saul just does what he's going to do, and he ends up killing himself in battle, in a hopeless battle. Well, I think God would have had mercy on him if he had just recognized that Samuel was speaking the truth and done precisely what God asked him to do. I think there would have been some mercy that's given. But Saul doesn't. He just stays in the same mistakes, because he's built himself just this deeper and deeper hole. That's what he's done. We can look at someone like Ahab. Ahab in 1 Kings 22. He does not want a prophet of Jehovah telling him what he should and should not do. And when Jehoshaphat asks that be done, the message that he is given is one that he doesn't like. But here you have shown the contrast between the prophet of God, Micaiah, and lying spirits, which is the message that God sends through Micaiah. That there are lying spirits here, and they are in these false prophets. But Ahab likes the lies. Now with Saul and with Ahab, where does it get them? It gets them death. That's where it gets them. Both die on the battlefield. Both of them do within hours, not days, but within hours of this information being given to them. We also have the likes of someone like Pilate in John chapter 18. When Christ tells him, those who are of the truth, follow me. Those who are of the truth. And Pilate says, he asks the question, what is truth? Not that he's going to wait around to find the answer, because he doesn't. It's not honest. It's not an honest question. He's questioning whether one can even know truth. What is, actually, it's less than that. He's bringing out an idea that one can't know it at all. What is truth? Where is that? Where do you even find that? It's impossible. And Christ just told them, those that love the truth will follow Him. Those that love the truth. So obviously you can know the truth. But Pilate just, what is that? And off he goes, being the manipulated little man that he was. We also can look once again at Romans chapter 1 and those that suppressed that truth. And when they suppressed the truth of God, they got nothing good. They did not raise themselves up. There is this idea, and it's been around for a while, that somehow that man can graduate from God. That somehow we can grow. We don't need God anymore. All right, that's a satanic idea. As a matter of fact, it wasn't long ago that I heard someone even saying that. It wasn't long ago at all. That we have advanced beyond God. We don't need Him anymore. Well, you'll find out That's all I can say. You'll find out. And what a person like that is doing is denying the truth. That's what they're doing, sarcastically or whether whatever is behind those words. Let's go to Psalm 111. Psalm 111, and we go to verse 10. Notice there is something imperative to having the truth. The truth is vital, but there's something that we have to have to gain the truth. There's something that must be there. In Psalm 111, it tells us here, but it's not the only place. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. A good understanding have all those who do His commandments. His praise endures forever. So the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of gaining or understanding there is a truth, and it's from God. Understanding that in the fear of the Lord is one that will govern us properly in being obedient to Him. There must be this healthy respect and, yes, fear. And I knew a fellow that he hated that idea that God should be feared. Well, there are plenty of people he feared, and he didn't hate that idea either. He feared the authority that a judge might have on him. He feared the authority that someone else might have on him to fire him or to toss him out of school. He had a fear concerning them, but somehow it changed when it was God, that He doesn't deserve any kind of respect, there's nothing about Him to be feared. Well, you don't know God, and you don't have the respect that you should have concerning Him. Yes, He is to be feared, and if He's not, then I'd have to say He must be extremely powerless. If He's not to be feared, He must have no authority whatsoever. If He's not to be feared, then does He exist at all? But here, the fear of the Lord, that's the beginning of wisdom. Now let's go to John chapter 8. John 8, beginning in verse 31. Then Jesus said to those Jews who believed Him. All right? Notice who He's talking to. Those who believed Him. If you abide in my word, you are my disciples indeed. Notice, here is the if-then statement. If you abide in my words, you are my disciples indeed, and you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. Here is this advantage that the truth gives. That's why it's imperative. It'll make you free. But there's also something necessary for gaining that truth. You shall, well, obviously, knowing the truth, but how are you going to do that? If you abide in my word. If you do these things, this is what occurs. If you abide in my word, you'll know the truth. Now, that is having the truth active in your life. There are plenty of people who know the words of Christ, but they don't follow it, they don't believe it. Do they know the truth? Well, technically they know the truth. Do they know it from firsthand experience of utilizing it? Nope, they don't. Firsthand experience of denying it, that they do. Now, the truth is that first part of the armor of God, and everything else follows. It starts there in the recognition of the truth that Jesus is the Christ. And as we have said, either that is true or that's a true statement or a false statement. It's either full or it is empty. One or the other. You decide on your own. No one makes that decision for you. Nobody. You can receive help, yeah, but nobody makes that decision for you. We need to look at our own lives and look at our own faith and look whether we are in fact doing the will of God. And as we say, when you learn something from God, you change your life accordingly. You live it. When you learn something from Him, you make whatever adjustments need to be made. There's plenty of things that can that you could be ignorant about. But being ignorant is not a good place. Plenty of things you can be ignorant about, living your life a certain way, and then suddenly you realize the Bible teaches something completely different. Something that I did not realize. But make adjustments then. That's exactly what Saul of Tarsus did. That's what others have done. Of course, others that we have listed here who did not obey at all. We ask this morning, if you need to obey the gospel, if you need to respond to the invitation, if we can help you in any way, that you come as we stand and sing.